Hi everybody, my name is Victoria. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a very belated December wrap up because I just never did it. I don't know how it happened, but we just didn't do it. So I have 8 books to talk about today, and let's just jump right into it. So the first book that I finished in the month of November was Eclipse by Stephanie Meyer. And so if you don't know, I have been rereading the Twilight series, having a blast with it. And this one came out with some surprising results. I used to think that this was actually my favorite in the series. Upon reread, it is no longer my favorite. And I will wait till next month, I think, to reveal which one was my favorite. But this one is now, I think, my third favorite in the series, which was quite a demotion. And I think the reason why this is no longer my favorite one is because certain characters grate on me a little bit more in this one than they did when I was a teenager and reading these. Jacob, in particular, just was so annoying in this one. I felt like he was immature and I just wanted to punch him. I did not like him in this book. However, this was still really fun, and I'm not regretting my reread of the Twilight series at all. These are just so highly addicting. If you've never read Twilight and you feel like it might possibly be up your alley, if you have any inclination towards, what are they calling it now? Romantasy? If you have any inclination at all towards romantasy and you've never read the Twilight series, it's never too late, I think. I think you should go for it. I rated Eclipse 4 stars for overall enjoyment levels. The next book that I finished in November was Spare by Prince Harry. This was a very buzzy book earlier in 2023 when it was released, and this was my Patreon book club pick. So we take suggestions from all my Patreon members and we do a wheel spin, and it has led to some very diverse reads. We've read all across the board. And we did specifically want to read a nonfiction in November. Before reading this memoir, I had no real background in what was going on with Prince Harry. I remember seeing him in the news, and specifically more in the tabloids. Like, you know, when you go to the grocery store and there's like the tabloids on the side when you're checking out. Yeah, that's pretty much all I knew about Prince Harry. I've not been a person to really follow the royal family. As an American, the royal family doesn't like influence my life a whole lot. To me, they kind of pop up in the news like from time to time. Obviously, this book is completely from his perspective. So the thing about that is that you only get one side of the story. So I don't feel like I'm super educated in being able to form an opinion about Prince Harry and the controversy surrounding him. But I do think that I came away from this book with the knowledge that Prince Harry has some things he needs to work out. I don't think that this memoir was written at the right time. I would have loved to see him write a memoir later in his life. I just feel like all of the things that he's experienced and like the hurt that he's dealing with is too fresh. And I think it clouds his ability to like write a book with perspective about his life. Certain things he had perspective on. I found his talking about his military experience to be really interesting. Obviously, like everything surrounding Princess Diana and like the tragedy of losing his mom was just heartbreaking to read about. When it came to the current events, I was very unsure about what was real, what was like really true, what was his perspective, because I just think he's too close to the situations. But obviously this is someone who has been like deeply hurt by his family members, But I also think that Harry has probably deeply hurt his family members as well. And that's just like not the side of the story that you get. So yeah, go into this. If you're interested in the royal family, this is going to be a book for you. But just go into it knowing that it's definitely one-sided. And so that will really determine how much you enjoy the book. I feel like if you're with Prince Harry or not with Prince Harry in his life choices. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on this one. I gave this book 3 stars. Next up, I finished The Never-Ending Story by Michael Ende. This was a reread for me. I hadn't read this probably since 2007 or 2006. So the last time I read this book, I was 16 years old. Obviously, my reading taste has changed a lot since I was 16. And upon reread, this is no longer, I feel like, a favorite book of mine. I used to think that this was one of my favorite fantasy standalone novels. And I can't say that I hold the same opinion anymore. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it. And I think it's very magical in its way. But the first half is where that magic happens. And then I felt like the second half of this book really was too long and unnecessary, and felt like it should have been almost a separate book. Like if there was a sequel to The Never-Ending Story, that's the second half. And if you've ever seen the movie, basically everything that happens in the movie is the first half of this book, and the whole second half is like brand new plot. So that was fun to discover because I hadn't remembered that. However, I feel like the second half of the book is a plot that meanders a little bit too much, and honestly just should have been a sequel. I think it would have worked really well that way. So yeah, without spoiling anything, I don't want to go into what happens in the second half, but if you've ever watched the movie, the book is really a lot like the movie. all the main like plot points. And then there's the second half, which is a whole separate adventure. So it was a worthwhile read. I'm glad that I revisited. Sorry, my dogs are being really noisy right now. I'm glad I revisited this, but I'm not sure it's a favorite anymore. But I'll give it 4 stars. In December, I read the autobiography of Santa Claus by Jeff Gwynne. This was my December Patreon book club pick, and this one was sort of a flop for me. It started out with a lot of promise. This starts with kind of tracing Santa Claus and his origins. So we go to like ancient times, like before Christ, and we get a picture of Nicholas as he becomes Saint Nicholas and those legends around that. And what I thought this book was going to do was I thought it was going to follow like legends of Santa Claus in different countries, across different time periods, and then make it a fake autobiography. And so this is written like from Santa Claus's perspective, and he's recounting the events of his life. And I thought that the idea of this book was really good. However, at a certain point in the book, it totally goes off the rails, wacky cuckoo, and it becomes like over the top, too silly, and that's fine. It's just not what I thought it was, and I don't mind like a cozy, silly novel that has some suspension of disbelief, but it just wasn't what I guess I was in the mood for. Maybe if I knew that now going in on a reread, maybe this book would hit me a little bit different, but it felt like what I wanted was not delivered in the end, and that was really too bad. I do think this book has some cozy elements that are very sweet and fun for the holidays, but I guess if you decide to read this book, just know what you're getting yourself into, that it does get kind of wacky and kooky. So if that's your thing, and if that sounds like the kind of book for you, then you will probably really enjoy this. But for me, this was, I don't know, somewhere between 2 and 3 stars. After that, I finished This Time Next Year by Sophie Cousins. I'm not sure how you pronounce that name, sorry. But this one is a rom-com kind of book that's around New Year's Eve. And I really enjoyed this one. This one just was a really nice, also clean romance, which is hard to find sometimes with modern romances, but this one really doesn't have any like steamy scenes. It's just very sweet and also really funny. I thought the humor in this book really landed. It landed for me, and it reminded me a little bit of like Bridget Jones, if you know the humor of Bridget Jones. I haven't read the book of Bridget Jones though, so I'm specifically talking about the movie of Bridget Jones' Diary. It had that kind of a feel to me. But actually I found this to be sweeter than that. The main female protagonist, her name is Minnie Cooper, which is not an accident, it's on purpose. Basically her story is that she was born around the stroke of midnight, but right after midnight hit. And so there was prize money for the woman who gave birth to the first baby on New Year's Day. And there was another baby that actually was born right before her, and the mothers were like coaching each other. They were like in the same room and like coaching each other through the birth. They both didn't have like a birth partner. Like the men in their lives were like gone somewhere else, and they were coaching each other. And so the other lady, she had her baby first, but not only did she have her baby first, she also stole the name of what was going to be Minnie's name. So Minnie was supposed to be named Quinn, and the other lady decided to name her baby Quinn, and she like did it right before. So then Minnie's mom was like, well, now I can't name my baby Quinn, I have to name her something else. And she chose Minnie, but then didn't realize that her name was gonna be Minnie Cooper for the rest of her life. So like there's all these jokes around that, and how it like follows her around. You know, she gets made fun of for being called Minnie Cooper, and that's where we start. So the other baby was a boy. So you could probably guess maybe what happens next. I feel like with romance books, you kind of you could see where they're going pretty quickly. And I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I recommend this, and it's, you know, probably something you want to read around New Year's and New Year's Day, and it's very, very sweet and fun. I gave this book 5 stars. The next thing I read was a short story, and that was Long Chills and Keisto by Brandon Sanderson. And this was a surprise release for people who backed the secret projects. And they released this one, well, I got it on ebook. I think maybe some people got like a hard copy, but I got an ebook copy. And so I started reading this, I think when I was on vacation, I started reading this one. And it was okay. I don't particularly recommend that you go out of your way to go read this. It was weird and not developed enough, which was to be expected. So the story of this one is, it was, I think, one of Brandon's like very, very early writings. Possibly like he was still in college or something. I could be wrong, but this was like very early, like before anyone knew who Brandon Sanderson was, before he had a name. It's basically a detective story with sci-fi elements. I don't want to give too much away because it's very short, but if you want to try a detective story by Brandon Sanderson, go for it. It was not my favorite short story he's ever read, but it's kind of entertaining and also interesting to see early Brandon write. He's come a long way, let's just say that. This is not like his best thing ever, but if you're a hardcore Brandon Sanderson fan and you just want to read everything that he writes, then go for it. This was also probably somewhere between 2 and 3 stars for me. Next up, I read 4 Sacred Plays by Dorothy L. Sayers. And actually, that's a lie because I didn't read all 4. I only read 2 of them. So actually, I read half of this book. The other 2 plays, I do plan on getting to. I don't know. I didn't get to them. But I read one of these plays for our Advent read along where we read He That Should Come, which is one of the plays in this collection. And that one was definitely my favorite of the 2 that I read. It was following the events around Jesus' birth and the other people who are in the inn and kind of milling around. And we get to hear like all these different conversations that are happening where Jesus is born. And so it's just so fun to read what Dorothy L. Sayers, like her perspective on what might have happened. And she just paints really well, like the climate of the time, what like the political and philosophical ideas might have been at the time. So He That Should Come is a play that I would give 4 or 5 stars to. And then I also read another one, which was, what was it called? The Just Vengeance? Something like that. I may not have gotten that right. Something like that. And that one was weird. This one is very esoteric, very heady, and very meta. It was just really out there. This one was more about like like, I don't know, we follow more like the origins of Adam and Eve. Cain and Abel make an appearance. It's very like tapestry, like we get kind of pieces of these Bible events, and then it's also about like this airman who dies in World War II, and then he's like at the pearly gates of heaven and he's having this conversation with the angel, and it's just really weird. There's no other word for it. This one is a little bit odd. So if that sounds good to you, give it a go. If you like Dorothy Sayers, it's definitely worth reading because she just thought in a really interesting way. I just like how her brain worked. So yeah, this one is probably not as strong of a play, but interesting for sure. And then there's 2 other plays in this collection. I haven't gotten to them yet. Maybe I will get to them next Advent, or I'm not sure when, but they are on my Kindle, so I will eventually read them. And then the last book that I finished in the year 2023 was The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. And this was a reread. Maybe a third time, I think. I think it's the 3rd time that I've read The Hobbit. I'm at the point where I'm losing track. But this was absolutely stellar on reread. Actually, I think I liked it the most this time. We read this with Tiffany's Patreon from A Beautiful Minutia is her channel. And we are currently rereading Lord of the Rings as well. And so we started with The Hobbit. And it was delightful. I loved all of my time with this book. I loved every second of it. 5 stars. What can I say? I love The Hobbit. More so this time, I think, because I could pick out themes that didn't go over my head exactly, but some that just like stood out more to me. Like, for example, Bilbo's reluctance to go on an adventure. His desire to stay home and to stay safe, that like hit me differently this time around, because I feel like I am Bilbo now in my life. Like I have no desire to have adventures currently. I just want to stay in my own little safe safe bubble. I don't want things to bother me. I just want to like have a pleasant life. And like I felt that challenge of like where Bilbo is challenged to like go out of his shell and live life and have an adventure. And I felt like called to go on an adventure with Bilbo. So for lack of a better way to explain that. So I just really had such a wonderful time. It was so fun chatting about this as well and like sharing our favorite quotes. It's just delightful. Previously, I had given this 4 stars on other reads, but this time I'm like, absolutely, The Hobbit is a 5-star book for me. And I'm so excited to continue reading The Lord of the Rings. I just started rereading The Fellowship of the Ring, and I'm doing it on audio, which I've never done before. And I'm doing the Andy Serkis audio, so I am just so excited. I think it's gonna be super fun. So those are all the books that I read in the month of November and December. Let me know if you have read any of them, or if you have any thoughts that you would like to share about them down in the comments. And I would love to know, what are you currently reading? If you made it this far in the video, go ahead and leave an emoji of like a hill or a mountain or grass, something like nature-y in honor of The Hobbit. Thank you so much for watching my video today. I have other social media links down in the description if you would like to follow me there. If you would like to support this channel in a financial way, I do have a Patreon as well. Thank you for choosing to spend some time with me today. Keep reading great books, and until next time, bye-bye.